At first, it was just a regular hen party. The women who worked at Winchester Logistics, at least those who worked in the warehouse, were paid on the last Friday of the month and had decided that it was the best opportunity to get together. Hillary loved to relax completely in the company of her friends. Most of them, like her, were married, and this was a chance to have fun while taking a break from the chore of work. Hillary's husband, Patty, didn't mind at all, and the other husbands didn't seem to care what their wives did, as long as there was dinner on the table when they got home. At work, Hillary felt a certain superiority over her co-workers, although she tried not to show it. They were all working-class women doing boring, monotonous jobs because they needed the money. But her Patty was well off, and Hillary didn't need to work. She thought being a housewife would be fun. But she soon became bored and took a job far below her means. She enjoyed socializing with women from the milieu she had once known. And when they exchanged stories about what they'd done while vacationing in Ibiza and Torremolinos, she laughed at their adventures. But she didn't participate. She and Patty vacationed more often in Singapore and Bali. The girls tried most of the city's establishments and eventually settled on the Tollgate Hotel. The hotel tried to keep its guests and locals from loitering all over town by having music and dancing every Friday and Saturday night. The ballroom had many dimly lit corners, and their husbands never went there. So the place was perfect to go wild without attracting anyone's attention. For Hillary, the place was perfect. For most girls, it wasn't too far away, but for her, it meant a rather long cab ride. That first night, Hillary had a wonderful time. Soon she was relaxing with the other girls and started flirting. Watching them, especially the married ones, dancing and caressing them, turned her on. She had 5 glasses of wine, but only paid for one, danced with 4 different men, 3 of whom tugged her ass and 2 of whom kissed her on the mouth. At least one married member of their gang slipped upstairs for an hour with a stranger. 2 more spent time in the parking lot. Later, they all agreed that any indiscretions would never be discussed outside of their bachelorette party, and next month, they would be sure to find a partner. Back at home, Hillary felt sexy and rejuvenated, and Patty was glad she'd had a good time. Having attended secretarial college, she had been unbridled, but she had soon discovered that there was a submissive side to her. She had many boyfriends and let them do whatever they wanted to her. But one day she overheard 2 classmates talking about her. They started talking about her. So Hillary decided to get her life in order. She met Patty, and he became her savior. Marriage was supposed to calm her down. They married and honeymooned in Hawaii. Her wild, hedonistic days were behind her. There were only 2 of these houses left in the upscale part of town. They were believed to be the oldest in the neighborhood. They weren't listed as landmarks and weren't old enough to merit a preservation order, but casual passers-by stopped and admired them. They were semi-detached and numbered 1 and 2 Bristol Road. Number 2 was the home of Mr. Barnes, who had retired. Patty and Hillary lived in number 1, which had been inherited from Patty's parents. He liked the place, despite the creaks and drafts. Patty ran his own business, Patty's Projects, working from home. He designed warehouses, house extensions, and parking lots, and word of mouth brought him a steady stream of orders. His computer-aided drawings weren't quite up to architect's standards, but they were more than enough to get local planning permission. The following month, Hillary found herself in the arms of a handsome man, tall, black-haired, with gray on his temples. His name was Arthur, and for the past month he had been slow dancing with her, familiarizing himself with her buttocks and lips. She hoped he would come again. The song was loud, and he leaned into her ear. "I really enjoy your company, Hillary. Could we sit down in a quiet place for a moment to talk properly?" After 18 years of marriage, Hillary felt her old wildness again. Sex with Patty had always been satisfying, though not frequent enough. But the low light, the naughty co-workers caressing her ass and kissing her ear had turned her on. Patty had made love to her, but now she wanted a stranger to give her a good fuck. Now Arthur's hands were gripping her buttocks firmly, almost pinching them. Hillary shuddered. Truth be told, she'd rather continue talking to him right here. "Okay, let's find a quieter table," she agreed reluctantly. They moved to a darker place away from the stage. Without asking what Hillary would like, he went to get drinks. When he returned, He moved his chair next to hers. "You said you work for Winchester Logistics?" "Yes," she replied. "The girls I'm here with today also work in their warehouse, as do I." It sounded rather pejorative, but Hillary did not care. She felt herself a representative of the common people. Nevertheless, she didn't want to sound like a typical physical laborer, so she added, "I studied to be a secretary, but working in a warehouse is all I could find here." "Well, I work as a sales director at Empire Holdings on the other side of town. I believe that a woman with style like you should be a personal assistant, and it just so happens I'm looking for just such a woman." Hillary was flattered. She knew that men found her attractive, but never before had she been called stylish. If Arthur really did have a job for her, Hillary would quit in no time. Of course, she would miss her friends, but that was what this bachelorette party was all about. She wished she had worn something more seductive. Sitting next to the strong man, she felt a tingle spread from her chest to her groin. Handsome, sexy, probably having the best job for her, how could she resist? "That's very nice of you, Arthur. Tell me more about it." They chatted for another 12 minutes, and he continued to flatter her. Soon, his arm was across the back of her chair. Every now and then, he touched her shoulder. "It was a pleasure chatting with you, Arthur," he interrupted her. "Next time for a conversation, we should get a room and discuss the position of personal assistant. We can bring a bottle of wine with us." Hillary didn't know what to answer. On the one hand, he had boldly assumed she would agree. No doubt he has sex on his mind. But on the other hand, she wants sex too. This handsome man clearly wants her, and she wants him. However, we shouldn't make it too easy for him. "I should probably get back to my friends," she said. "Most of them are busy right now," he replied. She looked at their table. Irene and Doris were the only ones left, talking to the two men huddled close together. Tracy stepped out onto the dance floor, being sandwiched between two black guys. The other girls were nowhere to be seen. "At least 2 of your friends have gone to the men's room. I think a few more have gone out into the parking lot." Irene was now exploring a young guy's tonsils with her tongue, and Doris was sitting on an older man's lap. Hillary knew she wouldn't be welcome at the table. The idea of sex with Arthur was tempting, and her mates were probably expecting it from her. She crossed her legs and sipped her wine. "Can I have another drink, please?" Arthur's free hand moved confidently up her thigh. It was so sexy, sliding down her silky pantyhose. After traveling most of the way up her leg, he stopped and squeezed hard. She almost wished she hadn't reached her target. He gave her one last squeeze and headed for the bar. The house was large, and Patty had set up the dining room as his office. He and Hillary almost never had guests over for dinner. On those rare occasions when he had to entertain potential clients, he and Hillary took them to a nearby restaurant. Their dining room table was now his workstation, with a large printer next to his computer. He had just finished expanding the warehouse and checked his phone. It was amazing how fast the time had flown by. It was past 11. Last month, Hillary would get home around 10:30. The girls must have gossiped a lot today. He had put on his pajamas and was still asleep when she entered the house at 11:30. "Aha! Your red face gives you away," he said. Hillary blushed even more. "What do you mean?" she asked. She panicked. Had he really gone to the toll gate and seen her? There was no time for a shower, and she prayed he hadn't thought to check her underwear. It was soaked through. "A red face tells me all I need to know. You've had more glasses of wine than you should have. I think at least 3. Her relief was almost palpable, and her heartbeat slowed to almost normal. The following week, Hillary called on Doris. The girls enjoyed the flirting and everything else so much that they decided to go there twice a month and hoped Hillary would join them. All of them had either already hooked up or were about to. She agreed. "Remember I told you about the music night, baby?" "Yeah, you said you liked the dancing." "Yeah, but it's also about the atmosphere. It's where you get to hear the news. I know I work with the girls, but we're spread out all over the warehouse and we don't get together much. I've danced a few times, we've all danced, but I'm quick to put guys in their place if they push too hard. I don't doubt that, so do you have something to offer?" "Yeah, the girls want to go more often. They're offering twice a month. What do you say?" "Well, a bachelorette party every 2 weeks doesn't seem excessive as long as you're on your best behavior." I'm going to be on my best behavior, baby, and I'm not going to let anyone rape me on the dance floor. But Hillary thought she was bound to be raped in the hotel bedroom. She was looking forward to the next session. The dangling carrot of a new job was no longer the most important thing. This new Hillary was now a cheating whore and wanted dirty sex again, with or without a job. She snuck out of work one lunch hour and bought a bottle of baby oil and a pair of stretchy stockings at the mall. Also a red thong that was so small that her vulva was dissected by nothing more than a piece of string. Arthur wasn't just offering to buy this, he was giving orders. Hillary wasn't used to being ordered around, and this made her shiver again. On the way to work, she looked in the glove compartment. Her supplies for sex with Arthur she should keep in there. Patty didn't usually look in her purse, but better safe than sorry. When she lay on the bed for the first time that night, Arthur started kissing and cuddling her. Patty had just gotten paid for a design for a large garage that was to be attached to the front corner of a client's house. It was to lengthen the front facade and widen the back bowl to accommodate a laundry room and restroom downstairs. At the beginning of the project, he asked why the client specified an air gap on the exterior wall. The gas block interior wall and the brick exterior wall would have to be built with metal ties binding them together. This is not necessary for the garage. Today, he found out why. The building permit had been approved, but now the client wanted to reapply to build an additional floor above the garage, so he needed a stronger load-bearing wall. Patty was asked to design a shower room with a bathroom to the rear, a check room to the front, and a computer nook in between. He appreciated the extra cost. It would take longer to design this additional plan. And it would cost more, but Patty didn't want to start work until he'd visited the site to take measurements. He had drawings of the site, but he didn't trust them. Often they showed the architect's original intent, not the as-is. At the client's direction, he designed a standard-width garage, but the bathroom above it could be improved by squeezing in another 5 centimeters. He had an internal debate. Should he start the drawing tonight or wait until he had been to the house? So he decided to go and get his shillelagh, Irish baton. As his surname suggests, he has Irish roots, although he has never lived in the old country. But he does have an uncle in Shillelagh, where his grandparents were born. As a wedding present, his uncle sent Patty a souvenir shillelagh, a piece of hardened blackthorn, essentially a club. It has the traditional bumps along the shaft and a thickening at the end. He always smirked while holding it. In the movie A Few Good Men, Tom Cruise said he always thought better with a baseball bat. Patty picked it up from its place of honor above the fireplace and tossed it from hand to hand, speaking loudly in an Irish accent. "I always think better with a shillelagh in my hand. Hillary came in." "What are you doing with her?" she asked. "Thinking." He paced back and forth in the room, patting the heavy end of the shillelagh in the palm of his hand. "What are you thinking about?" "About what an extra 5 centimeters can do." She sighed. A cab honked outside. "I'll, go and meet the girls then." And she drove off. But Patty could see a flicker of worry on her face. Fear, even? He looked at the shillelagh and tossed her on the sofa. Surely she didn't think he would hit her with it. And yet that was exactly what her face said. And why hadn't she kissed him goodbye as usual? He pulled back the curtain and watched her walk toward the cab. Her red blouse was almost transparent, her black bra showing through. And the black pleated skirt was the shortest she owned. Hillary didn't look lecherous, but she was halfway there. She stopped in front of her car, unlocked the passenger door, and pulled a plastic bag out of the glove compartment. What's in it? Patty wasn't usually suspicious, but he was far from stupid. He'd check her car later. He picked up the shillelagh and started pacing again. In the cab, Hillary calmed down. Patty was just acting strange. He must have been thinking of something else, for he would never have hit her. His strange remark about the extra centimeters had nothing to do with her. She soon calmed down and entered the hotel, heading straight for the restrooms. In a stall, she opened her purse, the largest one she owned. Pulling out a plastic bag, she removed her bra, panties, and pantyhose, shoved them into the bag, and slid it into the corner of her purse. Then she took off her shoes, pulled on her thong and stockings, and put her shoes back on. At the mirror, she put on red lipstick to match the stockings. Now she actually looked like a whore. Perfect. Exactly the effect she was going for. She checked once more to make sure she had baby oil and walked into the bar. Arthur stood up and greeted her. His hug and deep kiss gave her a familiar tingle. She said hello to a few of the girls, and she and Arthur had a drink each to check in. Irene and Doris were already sitting on their boyfriends' laps and gave her a quick wave. The guys probably tried to wave too, but their hands were out of sight. Tracy was dancing with the two black guys again. Hillary shuddered. The thought of being between two men penetrating her brought back memories. She had done it once before when she was young, and she had enjoyed it. She couldn't wait to get to Arthur's room and kissed him before the elevator doors closed. As soon as they arrived, Arthur ordered her to undress, treating her like a maid. At home, a good husband who works to provide her with vacations and expensive clothes. So his unfaithful wife throws off her clothes in front of another man. Great. Now you look like a whore willing to sleep with anyone. It suits you. Go down to the bar and get my coworker down here. How am I supposed to recognize him? He's tall, light brown hair, name's John. If you get it wrong, you'll have to scour the bar until you find him. Entering the bar, Hillary was in her element. She hoped one of the girls would see her, but she immediately spotted her target at the bar. "Hi, are you John?" she asked. He turned and smiled at her, then stared frankly at the top of her stockings and her protruding nipples. "I could be," he replied. "I'd be happy to change my name to anything you like." She turned away, muttering, "Sorry." "Don't be, it didn't hurt," he said as she walked away. "If it's not enough, come and see me again if you can't find it." She saw another man matching the description sitting at a far table, twirling a glass of red wine in his hands. She crossed the floor, realizing that there were many eyes, both male and female, watching her. "You're not John?" she asked. "Probably yes," he answered, smirking. "Sit here for a minute." She wondered if he was the wrong man, but his grin was very understanding, and she sat down across from him. What difference does it make? After all, that's what a prostitute does. She crossed her legs. "I take it you're looking for a particular John?" "Yes," Hillary answered. "Well, here's the deal. First spread your legs and show me what's up your skirt." So she did. "Now I'll give you a clue. If you think I'm the same John, you have to pay a fine. If you don't, you can keep looking. Here's a hint. I work at Empire Holdings." "I think that's you." "Okay, your fine is, dip your fingers in my wine and soak your blouse. Everyone can already see them, so let's show them off." She did as commanded, and was shocked at how visible they became. The material stuck and pressed against her, exposing every areola tubercle. She hoped the stain could be removed. But John, if it was him, didn't rest easy. Hillary had to pinch her nipples and apply more wine. She knew that as she walked backwards, the fact that she had no bra would become obvious. It might even draw people's attention away from the top of her stockings. "One last clue. I'm the Director of Human Resources at Empire Holdings. Employment contracts with new employees, such as a new assistant, must be negotiated with me and the head of the relevant department, such as the Director of Sales. You're the John I need. That's what I like to hear. Your final penalty, stand up and also twist your skirt with the waistband." "What, right here? I'm about to expose my ass. I mean, my ass." That's the point. In Arthur's room, she and John demonstrated spit roasting. Hillary had had the pleasure of servicing two men at the same time before, and she was not disappointed. She hadn't thought about them switching places, but when they did, it was great. The cab pulled up just after 11. "Is there any reason why you're wearing a man's jacket?" "Yes," she answered, unbuttoning it. "Some guy was dancing with Doris, and when he led her back to our table, he picked up his drink and put his other hand under her dress. She slapped him in the face so hard that he staggered and spilled red wine all over me. She practiced this excuse in the cab. He was so embarrassed that he gave me his jacket to cover the mess. Fortunately, nothing got on my skirt." Hillary unzipped his jacket and showed him his soaked blouse. The obvious outlines of her nipples were gone, but the black bra was more visible than before. "I see." "Worse things have happened," Hillary continued. "I wouldn't let him get in the cab with me, so I went home alone, but I had to give him our address. Tomorrow morning he'll come by to get his jacket." Lying in bed, Patty remained calm and waited for her to fall asleep. then slipped outside with the car keys. The package in the glove compartment confirmed his worst fears, a soiled thong and red stockings to match. So it wasn't just girls on this bi-weekly outing. The baby oil alone spoke volumes. He switched things up and went inside to check the man's jacket. Nothing. On impulse, he checked the laundry basket. Bra dry, as were the black panties she'd obviously gone out in. How was it that a glass of wine had wet her blouse and her bra had remained untouched? The next day, he was trimming the hedge in front of the house. It was fall, and this trimming was the last of the year. When Mr. Barnes came out, Patty was just getting to work on his side. "Thank you for doing this. Has Hillary gone shopping?" "Yeah. I've got good news and bad news, son. And I thought I'd better tell you while she's away." Patty's put the scissors away. "Let's start with the bad. I've got an infestation, at home. It's called dry rot, and there's a lot of wood in both our houses, and if I've got it, you almost certainly have it too." "What are the signs?" "I'd better check. I haven't noticed anything on my end." "Look for deep cracks in the exposed beams. Also, crumbling wood and orange spores. That's fungus. I took a picture at my place and checked what it is online." "Thanks, I'll do that. But now give me the good news. Although I doubt it'll be very good." "You might be surprised. Come on in and have a beer. I have a nephew who works for the local council, and he overheard something he shouldn't have, and he certainly shouldn't have told me. So what I say next stays strictly between you and me, okay? My lips are sealed." Some of his higher-ranking colleagues were discussing the agenda for the upcoming meeting before April 6th, the new tax year. They need to get all their business ready for next year's financial planning. One developer is asking for permits to build a dozen expensive homes, creating a new neighborhood. He was turned down last year, but has come again this year with an improved proposal. 10 houses, a bar-restaurant, and a mini-supermarket. It will be accepted. So what's the good news? They need a computer-aided designer? No, they're going to serve you and me with compulsory purchase orders. There's land underneath us that the developer wants. What? After all these years, we have to sell everything and move? How is that a good thing? I'll tell you, the local authorities know that our houses are unique. Even with normal compulsory purchase, they pay 10% above market value to compensate for the hassle. And they pay for the estate agent, solicitor, and moving costs. For our two, they're likely to raise the price by 20%. So you and Hillary will get a very favorable price for settling elsewhere. Think about it. Do you want to stay here while they treat the infestation? It will be a costly peripetia, and you'll never get your money back for the work done, and you'll get a pittance for forcibly buying a contaminated house. So when they make an offer, don't mention dry rot, and don't even think about calling an expert. Then the problem will become public. Patty thought for a moment and said, "I'd like you to do something for me." When Hillary returned from the store, Patty's car was gone. Mr. Barnes was trimming the hedges. "Oh, looks like you trimmed our side too, Mr. Barnes, thank you. Do you know where Patty's gone?" "He had to visit a client. Something to do with precision measurements. He'll probably be back soon. Could we have a word with him first?" Sure." Hillary put down his shopping and joined him. "I know Patty has lived here all his life, so what I'm about to say will be very upsetting to him. It would be better if you said it. I'm not going to tell him anything." "What the hell happened?" "I had a timber expert come to see me yesterday. When Patty came back, he went on the offensive to throw Hillary off balance and see if she'd keep the bad news from him. He avoided a full-scale attack, wanting only to keep her on edge." "So what did you do at your bachelorette party?" he asked. "I'm not sure I like it." "Like what? I didn't do anything." "I noticed your black bra and panties don't have wine stains on them. Did you take them off at that hotel? Did you look in my underwear drawer?" He didn't answer, staring at her in silence. When the silence became uncomfortable, he spoke again. "So you rented them at that hotel?" Hillary had been preparing for this and was already expecting the questioning. "First of all, I certainly didn't take off my panties. It's outrageous. But I did take off my bra just before the incident. It irritated me. I think maybe it hadn't been rinsed properly and the laundry detergent had irritated me. So when the guy attacked Doris and she spilled her wine on me, and yes, I had been braless for 5 minutes already, and when I got wet, everyone could see my breasts where it stuck. That's why he lent me his jacket. There was nothing on my skirt, so there was no reason to get my panties dirty. Then if your bra was clean, why did you put it in the laundry basket? I said because it hadn't been rinsed properly. Okay, I get it. Sorry. Patty thought Hillary's answer was clever enough to justify the reason she took off her bra, but still not enough. In her original story, the wine had been spilled by a guy, but now it turned out to be Doris. Still, the plan was to shake her up a bit. Since she hadn't mentioned the dry rot, she was probably going to walk away from it. What to do if she mentioned it, he didn't know. But she didn't mention it, and at the next bachelorette party, she cried and said she wasn't feeling well. He checked her phone and went through all the girls, starting with Amy, and they all had a similar message from her. Sorry, can't make it. He was sure she was cheating, but that idea seemed to be dead for the moment. Maybe he'd scared her off. If the affair was a one-time thing, he could live with it. But it still bothered him that she hadn't told him about the contamination. He clarified that Barnes had definitely told her. He never found out that Arthur Mycroft was hiding under Amy's name, but in the end, it didn't make any difference. A week later, Hillary gave him the news from Winchester Logistics. They were having a Halloween party there. Everyone and their partners were invited. You know, it's at the Tollgate Hotel, and it coincides with our bachelorette party next Friday. Sounds like fun. I could go back to being a masked lumberjack if we still have the costume. I think it's in the attic, and this time, the Winchester's really gone to town. The entire hotel is booked. Anyone who books a room the night before can get it for free. Patty didn't need a clear plan. He answered at once. Great, book a room for us. It was the Wednesday before the party. Patty retrieved his lumberjack costume from the attic. While there, he noticed a foul, musty smell. When Hillary returned from work, he told her the sad news. I've just had a call from my uncle in Ireland, he said. It's his birthday on Friday, and he wants me to come and visit him for the weekend. But you've never done that before. Yes, but he's just been diagnosed with cancer. This meeting with him will probably be the last. It's not a good time, but I have to go. You'll miss the party. That's what I mean by bad timing, but you'll have more people there than me, and you look fantastic in that goth witch costume. You should still go and use our room. It'll save you cab fare, and you get a free breakfast. Well, if you're sure. Thursday afternoon, Patty left. His departure was accompanied by hugs, kisses, and the words, "Tell your uncle I'm praying for him." He left his lumberjack costume where she could see it, but took his new outfit with him. It amused him to stop for the night at the toll gate. As soon as he had gone, Hillary called Arthur with the good news. It's wonderful, he said. Fate has conspired to bring us together. John and I will come in masquerade costume. The toll gate refused to take reservations for outsiders, but they didn't say anything about the party. So anyone in costume will be allowed in. To summarize, when you become my assistant, there will be times when you'll have to entertain my most important clients. Yeah, I know what I'll have to do. It sounds fun. You've had 2 interviews, and you're a good fit. If you can satisfy John and me at the last interview at the party, you can start work on Monday. You won't have to give notice to quit your warehouse job. Just let your boss know tomorrow night. The Halloween party can be your farewell event. I think I have a pretty good idea what my last interview will be. I'm sure you do, but I'll confirm. You'll take John and I to your suite, where we'll grind you down, repeat all the combinations. Oh, yeah, you'll keep us entertained all night, although we'll be gone before breakfast. And on Monday, when you start work, you'll spend the morning with the CEO of Empire. He, too, has a thing for asses and will give you a good spanking. Let's call it an introduction to the profession. Patty entered the hotel ballroom 15 minutes before the start time. He was dressed as Death with a Scythe, a black hooded cloak with a black mask underneath, hiding all but his eyes. The scythe was slightly wobbly, but no one expected it to be real. At the free bar, he got himself a drink. He didn't often drink cider, but today a dry blackthorn seemed particularly appropriate and made him smile. More people in suits were arriving, and he mingled with them, remaining silent. Obviously, some of them were watching him, wondering who he was. But no one asked any questions. Humans are by nature cautious about death. Luck was on his side. He soon recognized the pirate, joined by the masked man from the Scream franchise. The pirate stopped by One Bristol Road to pick up his jacket. It's chaos in there," said Scream. "Everyone has arrived at once, and the administration is not even trying to register people properly. I'll get an extra key later. What room are we in?" 216, 2 double beds, though we'll only need one for the first couple hours. "Is our new assistant here yet?" "No, she's on her way. Look for the goth witch." Patty was tempted to try to gain access to this room as soon as possible, but he forced himself to wait until Hillary arrived. When she showed up, she obviously knew how the guys would be dressed and immediately made her way over to them. They exchanged hugs, ignoring Death with a scythe standing nearby. He was able to hear their plans. Hillary will inform her boss that she is leaving. Then she would go around to everyone and say goodbye to her friends. The whole process should take no more than 3 glasses of wine, which is about an hour. When the initial excitement died down, Patty finished his cider and went to reception. "I left something in my room," he said. "Can I have the key to room 216, please? I'll bring it back right away." "I dare not refuse you, sir," laughed the woman at the counter. "I don't want to die tonight." Patty leaned forward and picked up the key. "You people misunderstand me. I don't kill people. I just separate the soul from the body when its time comes. Where it goes is none of my business. However, I do keep an eye on those who sin, so you'd better behave yourselves." He unlocked the room, left the door open, and handed the key back. Back in 216, he decided to hide in the bathroom so he wouldn't be in plain sight for too long. Finally, the trio appeared, piling into the room. They stood in silence for a minute and then began to dump their things. Patty watched them and couldn't help but smile at their priorities. Pirate Arthur took off his hat, jacket, mustache, and beard. John took off his mask and Creek cape, and the witch removed her pointed cap, gown, and panties, leaving her naked except for her black net stockings. John went to the bathroom, zipping up his zipper, and received a sudden blow to the face. He recoiled, holding his bleeding nose. Death stormed in next and spoke in a low voice, almost a whisper. "You shouldn't have taken the mask off," she said. John started to rise and received another blow. He fell and wet himself. Death with a scythe turned around to face the other two, frozen in place. Arthur was the first to recover and assumed a fighting stance in front of Patty, who swung the scythe. "You won't hurt me with that wretched piece of plastic," he said, "and you won't take me by surprise." "We'll see about that, mortal." Patty raised the scythe spectacularly and pointed it in an arc at Arthur, who raised his right arm to ward off the blow. Something moved in the folds of Death's cloak. Shalila caused Arthur's left ear to crunch, and he sat up sharply. "Patty?" Hillary asked. Arthur's eyes glazed over and he remained seated. He pressed one hand to his ear and blood trickled between his fingers. Patty raised the shillelagh again. "Stop!" cried Hillary. She stepped toward him and grasped the thick end of the baton. He froze, and she withdrew her hand and brought it up to his face. There was a blood stain on the palm of her hand. "Please stop, Patty. Look what you've done. If you hit him again, you'll kill him. Is that worth a life sentence? Am I worth it?" Her last words came to mind. No, that cheating bitch wasn't worth going to jail. He put the baton down and came to his senses. He had to think straight. He'd need to negotiate a divorce soon. "If we can keep him from being hospitalized, I'll talk the guys out of calling the cops." She turned and looked at John, who nodded without taking his eyes off the shillelagh. Arthur only groaned, but still began to focus. "Go home, Patty. Think about what you want out of this situation, and on Sunday I'll come and talk to you. And get your stuff while you're at my place. Yeah, if that's what you want." Sunday came, and Hillary drove up at 10 o'clock. Patty didn't have to think long about what he wanted. It was simple, a divorce and a house. The conversation began with her unnecessary explanations. She got carried away, reverting to her former promiscuous self. Then it came down to divorce. "But my cheating doesn't matter. I'm still entitled to half of everything, including the house." Patty realized she was just playing a role. To make it easier to break up, she would agree to anything. She didn't really want anything to do with the infected house. Maybe so, he argued, but I'm also entitled to a wife who doesn't go out and have a threesome. If an angry husband shows up screaming, it's a bad start to your career as a personal assistant. If he starts telling anyone who will listen that you slept around to get the job. Okay. What do you want to do so you don't make a fuss? Take your stuff, half your furniture, and half your bank balance. I'm keeping what's left and the house. Hillary looked disappointed. Okay, but I'm also keeping the car you paid for. 2 hours later, she was driving away in her car, the trunk and back seat full of her belongings. She laughed. Keep it, Patty, she said aloud. A couple more years and he'll collapse on you. Patty thought that not being cluttered by Hillary made the apartment look empty, and he was quite happy with that. The following week, he called in his expert, not to confirm the presence of dry rot, but to check the old furniture. The only casualty was the piano, which he didn't know how to play anyway. It was burned, and the rest of the furniture was found to be free of infection. Patty put the more important things in storage. Hillary enjoyed her new job, although she missed her home at 1 Bristol Road. The divorce went quickly and smoothly, and she didn't have to see Patty when it was finalized. For several months, their paths didn't cross. Her new apartment was small but perfectly acceptable. She quickly became accustomed to the new lifestyle. There was submissive sex, usually with businessmen, and great bonuses when she helped Empire close a deal. So your butt is itchy? The doctor asked. Yes, and in the last few days it's been a little sore when I poop. Are you and your partner having anal sex? Yes, but not for over a week. Do you use condoms? No, not always. Take off your panties and lie down on the examination table. All done, you can put them back on. Sitting down across from the doctor, she asked what was wrong. He took off his latex gloves and threw them in the wastebasket. I have taken samples from the sore spot and will have the results very soon. But I regret to inform you, Mrs. Boyle, that you have herpes. I'll be able to determine which strain of the virus you have. The itching and painful defecation are caused by virus vesicles. You have a rash around your genitals, so you can expect painful urination. And I think I can see sores starting to form on your lips. There's nothing unusual about these symptoms, but this is the first time I've seen them in all 3 areas at the same time. You're required by law to tell your husband. We're divorced. This happened after we separated. Then you need to tell your current partner or partners, and they should get tested as well. If either of them have developed sores or rashes, they in turn need to inform all other contacts. Oh my God, is there a cure for this? The good news is it can. I'm confident that my diagnosis is correct, so I'll prescribe medication right away. They'll relieve your symptoms and reduce the severity of future outbreaks. So it could happen again? Unfortunately, yes. We can only treat, but not cure completely. The herpes virus stays in the human body forever. Arthur and John were shocked by this news, both confirmed to have herpes, and the hunt for suspects began. No one blamed Hillary, of course, but her job had become rather routine. She only attended 1 more bachelorette party, and then she stopped going there altogether. She missed her job at Winchester Logistics and her friends. Her life had become lonely. After a full confession to her doctor, it was confirmed that the virus didn't start with Arthur or John, so Patty couldn't have contracted it. She felt like visiting him, so she drove to the end of Bristol Road, but the lowest number was now 3. Behind it was a large construction site full of diggers and other machinery. She got out of the car and approached the only man in a suit and yellow helmet. "You can't go into the construction site, ma'am," he said, blocking her way. "What's going on?" "A new development, 10 custom homes. We're opening a sales office tomorrow if you're interested." "What happened to houses 1 and 2? "Demolished and will be rebuilt, but number 1 has already been sold to some rich Irishman."